Hey guys, welcome back to Rossoneri TV. I'm Gio and I'm here for the match review of Lazio against AC Milan, match that finished in Rome a few moments ago with Lazio winning it 4-1. A very embarrassing showing for Milan, it has to be said, and I think it was really a snap back to reality for the Rossoneri after having won the opening two fixtures of the season against Crotone and Cagliari. This was their first real test of the season, I guess we could say. The Europa League fixtures as well were not very demanding for Milan. They were not, proper tests for them to actually test out the new squad that they have. And I think, like I said, this really serves a lesson for Milan, getting such a severe loss by Lazio today at the Stadio Olimpico in Rome. So let's start speaking about this match from the very beginning. I think the first opening 5-10 minutes, Milan was putting some good pressure, and I think we even were creating a bit more than Lazio at the moment, at that time, even though the two teams seem to be a bit more balanced. I don't think Milan started off the game quite bad. As the game went on, obviously, things got worse. Especially near the end of the first half, where Kessie conceded a penalty shot and Immobile made no mistake from the spot to score it. And just a few moments later, he scored again with a beautiful volley to beat Donnarumma for the second time, like I said, in a few minutes. Personally, I don't see Lazio as a bad team. They're actually a very good team with lots of talented players, and I could understand even them winning this sort of game. They're home. It's not like they're expected to win, but, it's not like you're going to count it out that Lazio could beat Milan in any game. So, personally, I was understandable of Milan trailing 2-0. Also, given the circumstances that the game was going into. But what I don't understand is the reaction that they had after halftime. Because technically, between the players or the coach himself, Montolivo, you're coming on in that halftime and you're expecting to give some sort of speech. They were really supposed to come out and react to those two goals that they conceded at the end of the first half. But that really did not happen. They came onto the pitch in that second half, and Lazio scored two goals in quick succession again to add to those Milan wounds. So really, I don't understand the reaction that Milan had right there. Overall, I just think it was a very poor game for Milan. Very bad decisions, not only from the players but also from the coach himself. You got options like Kalinic, even though he played a good part of that second half and didn't do too much, you cannot solely blame it on him because the team in general was not really there anyways. But you got guys like Andre Silva, which we paid like 40 million for. He's sitting on the bench. Çalhanoğlu as well. These are guys that need to start games, in my opinion, especially against teams like Lazio. You cannot go into these games starting guys like Borini and, for example, Crotone, which, all due respect, he did score 4 goals so far this season, including the Europa League qualifiers. But to me, personally, I cannot see a guy like Crotone, which is still very young, inexperienced. Just because he scored those goals does not mean that it makes him automatically, a reference point for this team. Yes, he scored those goals, but, in these tougher games, these games where experience really counts a lot, I would opt for a more experienced option, maybe like Kalinic or Andre Silva. But I do understand that Montella wants to go down that momentum route with our players, and that is why maybe, he decided to go with Crotone again. My opinion is that, in the next games, he's going to have to change it up, and maybe he's going to have to come off from the bench instead of starting games. But I'm not, talking negative about Crotone. That's just my opinion on what Montela's choices should have really been today. Like I said, Borini didn't do much today again. Suso as well, I think they really covered him well. Wasn't brilliant at all. And the midfield especially, I was very, very concerned with what I saw with the midfield today. Was composed with Kessie, Billa, and Montolivo. Now you got Kessie and Billa, the two new arrivals, which should pump up this team, especially in the midfield. Billa is supposed to be that creative mind playing as a center mid, but in my opinion today he really did not show much. He looked either fatigued or tired, lack of ideas. I don't know what it was with him, but really didn't show much, in my opinion, on the pitch today. Kessie, I think he made lots of mistakes. Yes, he's a very hard worker, and I appreciated the fact that until the last minute, he was running back, defending, and so forth, but he also did lose a lot of balls today. And in my opinion, you cannot afford to do that against Lazio. They will hurt you, and they will hit you on the counter like we saw a couple of times today. Nonetheless, I was, at least pleased with the way he was moving up, and he was, trying to create those chances. But in the end, the finishing product really wasn't there from Kessie. Montolivo, not the best of the first half, that's for sure. Lots of balls given away, as you would expect. When starting counters, Montolivo is not the man you want to have on the ball. He's very slow on that viewpoint, as we all know. But in the second half, I still think that he showed a lot of grit. I'm not trying to defend him here. I'm only trying to speak realistically of what I saw. But he showed some character. Maybe his goal was a bit fortunate to land to his feet exactly like it was. But at the end of the day, he still got the goal, and hopefully, it's not something that's going to change overnight for Montolivo, or maybe it's not ever going to change, but speed-wise, that needs to improve. And I think the team in general, there was really no concern. It was a lot of passive playing today. Wasn't really, like push. It was more like a passive, controllable type of game. At least that's what they should have done. More of a controllable game. Yes, we did see a lot more of that in the second half, but that's also because Lazio was sitting back to defend their 4-goal lead. But like I said at the beginning, this needs to be served as a learning lesson, as a lesson that just because we won those games against Cagliari, Crotone, and those Europa League fixtures, it does not mean that we can win every game. Lazio is a superior team, and we will find a lot of tough fixtures this season against top opposition like Roma, Inter, Juve, and a lot more other teams. So Milan's gonna have to regroup and really evaluate their options. Also, Montella needs to start making better decisions, and a lot of you guys I saw already in the chat were speaking about formations, tactics, and so forth, which I do understand. He needs to implement these tactics and formations, and you cannot just stick to one module. He needs to change as the game goes by, or actually pertaining to a specific game. You can play in a certain way against one opponent, you can play in another way against another opponent. These are things that the coach or the manager need to do. They need to adapt to these specific games in other ways. They cannot just stick to one module. Also, like I mentioned before, the lineup. You're playing Lazio. You cannot just go in with based on who has been doing good, or who you think should be good for this game. You need to put your strongest options out there, and we saw on the bench very stronger options than what we saw today. There was Çalhanoğlu, like I said, Kalinic, Andre Silva, that could have all started from the beginning. Like I said, Andre Silva, 40 million euros, and the guy is sitting on the bench. He hasn't really seen the bright of day just yet. So, these are all things that Montella needs to consider, that's for sure. And hopefully he will make better decisions in the future. But today was absolutely unacceptable what I saw from those choices and also from the way that we played. Defensively, I didn't speak about the defense yet. Was not impressed whatsoever. Of course, conceding 4 goals, you cannot say that the defense had a good game. But, you know, Bonucci, Musacchio, Rodriguez, they all made mistakes today, and they were very costly mistakes. Not quite sure what happened, but you know, especially the 3rd and 4th goal, those were pretty avoidable goals. The penalty shot as well was avoidable, but you know, the reaction after that halftime was simply not there, and I did not appreciate that at all. Because at halftime, you know, you're trailing 2-0, you're supposed to have a talk, which things should change, and really they did not change. It went from bad to even worse, and you know, you cannot have that, especially against Lazio. Teams like that, they will take advantage of your mistakes, and today Milan simply made too many of them. But I want to know your thoughts in the comment section, guys. I want to know what you guys think about this game. Any thoughts, any comments on any specific player for Milan today, or Lazio if you want to speak about him. Let me know in the comments. Also, if you guys want to speak about the manager's decision, that's also open for discussion. So let me know your thoughts in the comments section. Gamers Realm says, I really like the optimism, but man, our biggest flaw is defending crosses and the lack of center attacking mid. Akan is good for crosses, but we need someone like Suso in the midfield so he can dribble. I mean, Kessie, when I saw him at Atalanta, the guy could have done everything. You know, he was dribbling, he was defending. His physicality is there, which is very good. But I do agree with you, we need more creativity. And I think, you know, bringing in guys like Bia today, or this season, you're supposed to add to that creativity. But, you know, simply speaking, we did not see that today. And like I said before, he looked very slow, very tired. I don't know what it was, but I don't think his mind was completely in the game today, and I don't think it's because he was playing against his ex-team. I don't believe in these things at all. Simply, you know, the midfield was inexistent today, and not only the midfield. Emil Soboleski, thank you so much for the donation. Really appreciate it, man. As always, guys, if you want to support the channel, you might donate through the super chat button at the bottom. So thank you once again, Emil. Very, very appreciated. Young Sinatra says, I feel bad for Bonucci because he has to play with players like Calabria. Well, I don't know if that's a very constructive comment, to be honest with you. Calabria, the guy, you know, I think last season he was one of our best crossers, and he's still very young. I think he has a lot of potential, and don't forget, we also had Abate as an option on the bench. Not quite sure why Montolivo didn't go for Abate instead. But, you know, Calabria, personally, I think he brings more to the game in terms of crossing and making up spaces in the front than Abate. But like I mentioned at the beginning, this is the sort of game where you might want to put more experience than actual potential. So guys like Abate, Kalinic, that know the Serie A more than these younger options, such as you know, Crotone or Calabria. You know, maybe it's time to actually put more experience in these sorts of games. But people that are, you know, really putting all this emphasis on Calabria being bad. He's not a bad player. Yes, he's not the best. He's still a young option. But keep in mind, guys, this guy is not our starter. He's like the 3rd option down the list behind Abate and Conte. And you will probably not see him start many games this season. So the whole team in general was poor. At least I personally think that Calabria was one of the better crossers last season as well. So not quite sure why people are just emphasizing on Calabria having a poor game. Yes, he didn't have a good game, but he's not the worst player on the pitch, that's for sure. DRV says his team would be Donnarumma in net, Conti, Bonucci, Romagnoli, and Rodriguez in the back 4. I'm not sure what you were talking about there. I think you made some mistakes. Jack, Silva, and Kalinic. I think that would be a nice, you know, lineup with Silva and Kalinic playing in that 4-4-2. Like I said, I think if we could create some sort of partnership between those two, it would be good. But this is all up to Montolivo. He needs to change module. He cannot stick with one certain aspect of his formations. He needs to change things up. You know, you cannot go with a 4-3-3 every single game. You need to change things up. Teams will figure you out. We saw it last season, near the end of the season, where actually it was more like near the second half, the beginning of the second half of the season, where teams were really figuring out Milan like no tomorrow. So you cannot make those mistakes again. Yes, you got better players now on paper, but just because you got better players does not mean that you have to stick to one module, one formation. You need to change things around. Ola Sebikan says, Gio Calabria had a bad game. Please do not defend anyone who had a bad game. Who's defending anyone? I just said Calabria was probably not the worst player today on the pitch. And I did say he had a bad game. Did I say that anyone had a good game today? Because I don't recall that. I personally said that Calabria had a poor game. He was not the best option. He was not the worst player on the pitch. And I think he brings a bit more creativity than Abate in terms of moving upwards, creating spaces, and definitely the crossing is better. Today, we did not see that, like I said. But generally speaking, he is a better crosser than Abate. Even though today I would have, preferred a bit more of an experienced lineup with Abate playing there. Calabria has qualities that I haven't seen in Abate in a very long time. The motivator, Gio, I have a question. Why does Bonucci play with no enthusiasm? The irony in that with your name, because you're the motivator. You should be motivating him. I feel like he's not the one in Juve. I don't believe that, I think that today, yes, Bonucci did not have a good game at all, but the grit that he showed in the previous games was there. Maybe today he was not all there like the rest of the team, but it's also a matter of getting used to the team. These guys, let's not forget, it's a brand new team and it's only the third game of the season. You're going to expect things to go completely wrong like this because, the first two games was against Crotone and Cagliari. You don't need that much chemistry or that much, togetherness or bonding with the team to beat these little teams. These are teams that you should be able to beat regardless. When it comes to teams against Lazio, maybe some sort of chemistry needs to be built. Some smarter decisions from the manager need to be made in order to beat these teams. You cannot just go into these games thinking, okay, we have a brand new team on the pitch, let's go and destroy this team. You cannot just think like that. Some more questions before I sign off. Safe says, Gio, some people say that the 3-5-2 is good, and yeah, it is, but if we switch to that, then guys like Suso and Akan will be dropped. What do you think? I still think that guys like Suso could play in a 3-5-2 as a right winger. I don't see why he would be dropped, and for who? Unless you want to play maybe Conti there and have a more, defensive-minded 3-5-2. But technically speaking, you can still have guys like Suso. Yes, he's going to have to do a bit more defending, but if your mindset is more to attack, and like I said, this does not have to be the formation in which you start games with. This could be a formation that could be implemented through time, through the games. So if you're thinking like 3-5-2 and you need an attacking-minded approach, then yes, you can have guys like Suso and Çalhanoğlu still playing in a 3-5-2 instead of guys like Conti or Rodriguez, for example. That's what I'm trying to say. Jeffrey says, it's early on, let's not get too worried about it, we can still come back. Of course, guys, and for whoever that was thinking, we're going to win the league or something this season, you guys are completely delusional because, we were never going to come into the season winning the Scudetto. It's a brand new team that needs, build. Just because we signed these guys does not mean we're gonna, win championships right away. We're not gonna win. We're gonna win trophies right away. It takes time, and it's gonna take maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years to actually compete, I think, for the Scudetto, because there's still a lot of very good teams right there. Juventus, look at them. Napoli, Roma, Inter as well did good and are doing good. So it's tough. It's very tough. It's a good start. We will, I think we will have a good season, but expect to find these bumps in the games every so often in this season. You cannot have a smooth transition like that from from 4 or 5 losing seasons to one excellent season winning everything. You will find bumps in the road, and that's pretty much what I'm trying to say here. I think that's gonna wrap it up for this match review. There's lots of games coming up for Milan. If you guys are not aware, we are playing every 3 days or so for the next couple of weeks. Of course, the Europa League kicks off next week, and Milan will be playing against Austria Wien, if I'm not mistaken. So lots of content, lots of match previews and reviews will be out on the channel. And on that note, make sure to subscribe to Rossoneri TV to stay updated with everything that is going on at AC Milan. Thank you all for watching. I'll catch you guys next time. This has been Gio signing off, and as always, Forza Milan.